Good morning, everybody. This is the Men's Sunday School class here at Mercy Baptist Church. My name is Robert Rathbone, and we are going to be in the Song of Solomon. Our book has basically covered the entire book of the Song of Solomon. I think it's got 8 chapters, and we'll cover all of it in one lesson here. And obviously, we can only hit some of the highlights, I guess, of the Song of Solomon. I'm not sure what criteria they use to choose the verses that we'll cover, but I'm sort of glad we're only spending one lesson on Song of Solomon, because of all the books of the Bible, I think I have the most trouble with the Song of Solomon, just trying to, I guess, understand it, trying to teach it, because and commentators admit that it can be a challenging book to interpret. Commentators, they tend to fall into two camps, either of two camps. One, some of them see it as an allegory between the expressing the love relationship between God and Israel, or between Jesus Christ and the church. And to do that, it requires that you read what is literally written and then try to imagine, well, how does that apply to the Christ? Now, you could do that by application, but as with any scripture passage, you need to read it in context first, and then you'll know how to apply it to us, here living in the 21st century. But like I said, first, they fall into two camps. One is they read it as an allegory of Christ's love for the church, or God's love for Israel. The other camp, set of commentators, they tend to believe that Song of Solomon is just what it appears to be. It is a love poem, a love song, expressing the love, or the beauty of the love of the beauty of marital love, love between a man and a woman, a man and his wife, and I agree with the author of our book, that of our quarterly, that when you allegorize things, you can just about make the Bible say anything you want, because you can say, oh, well, this is like that, and this is like this, and this is a picture of whatever. And you have to be very careful when you do that, because one person can allegorize it in one direction, another person can allegorize it in another direction, and have two totally different views on it. So I think it's the most proper way to interpret the Song of Solomon is just take it at face value for what it is, as an expression of love between a man and a woman, and how they adore one another, and their devotion to one another. And it gets difficult sometimes because the language in there can border, and dare I say, border on the edge of being erotic. So, in fact, I've heard it said that young preachers it was suggested or even advised that young preachers not preach from the Song of Solomon until they got older, so they could be more mature about it. But having said all that, trying to interpret Song of Solomon, because it's poetry, it gets difficult at times, because sometimes it's hard to know who's speaking, who they're speaking to, and sometimes scenes, it'll change from one scene to another scene with no warning, and so trying to keep up, I guess, with what's going on can be difficult at times. But basically, it is two central characters, and then there's other characters around it. There's of course Solomon. He's mentioned by name in the Song of Solomon, and then there is his beloved, who is the Shulamite maiden, and her name is never mentioned, so we have no idea who she is. These commentators speculate on who she might be, but we don't know who it is. But Solomon, by what's said here, he is desperately in love with her, and we'll see her through their courtship and into their actual marriage. And there are times when it almost sounds like they are engaging in premarital things that they shouldn't be doing, but I think commentators look at that as, well, like the Shulamite maiden she's imagining what it's going to be like on her wedding night, and how life with Solomon is going to be going forward. But she's not actually engaging in it yet. All right, so before we get into this, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you again for your love, your mercy, and grace. Thank you, Lord, for the Song of Solomon. Lord, I know it's got a value for us, because you've placed it in the Scripture, and I pray that you would help us to read it and understand it legitimately, and let your will be done, Lord, in our lives. Help us to learn from what we see here, Father, for it's in Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen. All right, that verse, our book's got us starting in first chapter, first verse, and it says, the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. According to 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 32, Solomon wrote 1,005 songs. And this one is called the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. And by calling it the Song of Songs, it's saying this is his best, or his highest achievement of his songs, the best song he ever wrote, the most inspirational, or whatever adjective you want to use. But this is the Song of Songs. This is the apex of all the songs that he ever wrote. And of course it says, this is Solomon, so we know Solomon wrote this. All right, verse 2, it says, let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for thy love is better than wine, because of the savor of thy good ointments. Thy name is as ointment poured forth, therefore to the virgins love thee. All right, this apparently is the Shulamite maiden. She's speaking first, and she's expressing her desire to be kissed by Solomon. And she mentions, she's because of the savor of thy good ointments. The ointments were an oil that was used for aromatic, kind of basically like perfume or cologne. It was to make you smell good. And so she's commenting on how much she loved his smell after he had used after he'd anointed himself with these ointments. And she says, therefore do the virgins love thee. She says, I can understand why any woman would love you, is because of how you smell, and that the kisses with his mouth. And he says, for thy love is better than wine. It's more intoxicating to me, or I enjoy it more than drinking wine. Then verse 4, he says, draw me, and we will run after thee. The king hath brought me into his chambers. We will be glad and rejoice in thee. We will remember thy love more than wine. The upright love thee. All right. So here, this is one of those occasions where it seems that the Shulamite maiden she's daydreaming. She's just, so she can't wait until the time, maybe, I guess, the marriage night, she says, draw me and we will run after thee. And she's basically saying, wherever you want to go, I'll go with you. She says, there's no place I wouldn't go with you. And then it says, the king hath brought me into his chamber. So she's daydreaming of that time, I guess, when they finally are able to consummate their marriage. And she says, we will be glad and rejoice in thee, and we will remember thy love more than wine. She's talking about how much they're going to enjoy themselves, enjoy each other. each other's company. And then she says, the upright love thee. And so, those, and if they were engaging in premarital sex, then they would not be upright. But the upright love thee. Those who believe in righteousness, says they love thee. Then our book has us skip into chapter 2 of Song of Solomon. And in verse 2 there it says, as the lily among the thorns, so is my love among the daughters. As the apple tree among the trees of the wood, so is my beloved among the sons. I sat down under his shadow with great delight, and his fruit was sweet to my taste. All right, so first she declares how much her love for Solomon excels above what other women would have toward their loved one. Because she says, as the lily among the thorns. A lily is going to stand out amongst the thorns. Because lily's a flower, you can see its blooms, and the thorn, if it's surrounded with thorns, you're going to see that lily is going to stand out. She says, so is my love among the daughters. Like all these other girls out here, they love their boyfriends or whatever. He says, but they don't love their boyfriends like I love Solomon. My love for him excels beyond what they do. Just like a lily, the beauty of a lily is up above the thorns. And let me find my place again. Then verse 3. And as the apple tree among the trees of the wood. Now she's comparing Solomon to other men. She says, as the apple tree among the trees of the wood. The rest of the trees presumably do not bear fruit, but he is like an apple tree that's surrounded by just normal trees. And she said, he is like that. He stands out. He blooms and he bears fruit. And so he's that much superior to other men. And so she says, I sat down under his shadow with great delight, and his fruit was sweet to my taste. So she loves being in his company. She wants to I just want to be in his shadow where he can overshadow me with his love, and and how much he cares about me. All right. Verse 4, he says, he brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love. Stay me with flagons, comfort me with apples, for I am sick of love. All right, so apparently Solomon is holding a banquet in her honor. He's expressing his love for her. He is honoring her because this is his soon-to-be bride, and he is wanting to let everyone know how much he cares about her and how much he wants to honor her. And so it says, he's brought me into the banqueting house. And it says, and his banner over me was love. We've got these banners hanging here that the ladies put up here for Christmas decorations. And the banner, and a lot of times they would use banners like in wartime, the banner to identify the army, who they were fighting for and such. And it said, his banner over me is love. He is expressing his love for me. And it's like a banner showing that I belong to him, that I am his, that he's devoted to me. And so she says, stay me, or I guess satisfy me, or at least, I'm trying to think of a good word here, but, kind of keep me satisfied with flagons, and the flagons, flagons, that is raisin cakes. And then she says, and comfort me with apples. She's saying, look, I am just so, she says, for I am sick of love, or I am love sick. I just can't wait. And so she says, look, you need to distract me with raisin cakes and apples, get my attention on that, because my love for for my, I guess you'd call him fiance, it's so great that I want to, it's driving me crazy. So verse 6 says, his left hand is under my head, and his right hand doth embrace me. I charge you, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, by the roes and by the hinds of the field, that ye stir not up, nor awake my love, till he pleases. All right, now she's describing his, the two of them are embracing. He's got his hand under her head, and with his right hand he's embracing her. And she is enjoying the embrace so much, being embraced by her, the one that she loves, that she says, look, you daughters of Jerusalem, all you other women, he says, don't disturb him, don't distract him, don't, try to, he's so lost in the embrace that he said, don't interrupt what he's doing, of the embrace. He says, until he gets finished, till he is no longer, till he, like when two people hug each other and they'll hug each other for a period of time, and then they'll finally come apart. She's saying, daughters of Jerusalem, don't distract him and say, hey, Solomon, look at this over here, or why don't you, start asking him questions or whatever. Don't distract him. He says, I want to embrace him for as long as I can, as long as he is satisfied to embrace me. I want it to last as long as possible. So she says, don't stir him up and don't awake him in a sense of getting his attention away from embracing me, till he please, until he's ready to end the embrace. All right, chapter 3, verse 6. It says, who is this that cometh out of the wilderness like pillars of smoke, perfumed with myrrh and frankincense, and with all the powders of the merchant? All right, now this is another one of those places where it's hard to determine who's speaking and who it's speaking to, but we do have a clue here because, at least who they're talking about. It says, who is this? And the word this there, it's actually feminine. And so it's who is this? Who is this lady? Who is this female that we're talking about? And it may be who's speaking, may be the daughters of Jerusalem or just onlookers, but they see someone coming. It says, who is this that cometh out of the wilderness like pillars of smoke? And we'll see here in a minute. This is the Shulamite maiden. She's on her way to her wedding. And Solomon has sent for her with his litter. You know how they used to, royalty, they'd have like a little platform or a bed type thing, and the person of royalty would ride on that, and they would carry her, or it might have wheels or whatever. This is apparently what's happening here. It says, who is this that cometh out of the wilderness with like pillars of smoke? Apparently they're burning incense, and it's rising up like pillars of smoke. And this is perfumed with myrrh and frankincense. So Solomon has provided her with all sorts of perfumes and things to make her smell good. And all the powders of the merchants, these were aromatic type powders, expensive powders. And she's coming out of the wilderness, or that is from outside the city. They're getting married in Jerusalem. And so from outside of Jerusalem, from out of the wilderness, as it were, her wedding train here, or wedding procession is coming, transporting her to Jerusalem. And so verse 7, it says, behold his bed, which is Solomon's. Threescore valiant men are about it, of the valiant of Israel. They all hold swords, being expert in war. Every man hath his sword upon his thigh because of fear in the night. All right, so now, it said, who is this that's coming? And now they're being more descriptive about it. It says, behold his bed, which is Solomon's. And of course, Solomon has provided this for the Shulamite maiden to ride into Jerusalem with. And he's provided her basically a bodyguard. It says there's 60, or that is 60 men. 60 valiant men are about it, of the valiant of Israel. They all hold swords, being expert in war, and every man hath his sword upon his thigh because of the fear of the night. They are transporting her, and they're standing guard, ensuring her safety. And apparently because of the fear of the night, they might be afraid that there might be robbers or thieves or, who knows, enemies or somebody that might want to mess up Solomon's wedding by killing his bride. So he's got his men surrounding her. Then it says, verse 9, he says, King Solomon made himself a chariot of the wood of Lebanon. Now it's describing this litter that she's being transported on. And it calls it a chariot. Presumably it may have wheels. Because this can, and judging by what it's constructed of, it could be quite heavy. So having wheels would be definitely an advantage. But he says, Solomon hath made himself a chariot of the wood of Lebanon, and wood of Lebanon was like some of the best wood available. So it is made of expensive wood, the best wood possible. And it says, he made the pillars thereof of silver, the bottom thereof of gold, and the covering of it in purple. In the midst thereof being paved with love for the daughters of Jerusalem. So it's made of wood, but it's, I guess, overlaid with parts of it, like pillars, I guess vertical parts, were overlaid with silver, the bottom thereof with gold. So, I mean, he's got it adorned with silver, gold, and this is and purple, which is a royal color. These colors, they're, I guess, signifying, well, the royalty, because this is Solomon's, and it's honoring her because she's getting to ride in it. And it says, in the midst thereof being paved with love. This, I guess, is more figurative that she's using this because Solomon loves her, he cares about her, and this is what he wants to, how he wants to honor her, to have her riding into Jerusalem in this royal. I mean, she don't just walk in by herself. She's riding on this royally adorned thing, that chariot or the litter, and it's showing his love for her. And this is for the daughters of Jerusalem, so that they see it, and they, I mean, there's a reason why women, when they get a ring, an engagement ring, and it's a big diamond, and they want to go show it off. It's this. They're like, oh, look what my, I'm getting married, and here's how much my future husband thinks. This is, I think it's kind of the same idea. It's for the daughters of Jerusalem, so they can see and they can say, ooh, ah, and the Shulamite maiden can be proud of what's happening. Let's see. Verse 11, it says, go forth, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, and behold King Solomon, with the crown wherewith his mother crowned him in the day of his espousals, in the day of the gladness of his heart. All right, so not only are the daughters of Jerusalem observing the Shulamite maiden coming into Jerusalem, now the attention is drawn to, it says, go forth and see Solomon now. Solomon's coming to the wedding as well. And it says, and behold, King Solomon with the crown wherewith his mother crowned him on the day of his espousals. The espousals, that's the day of his espousals is his wedding day. And so, and his mother, and obviously Bathsheba. She's placed the crown on her son's head. Maybe she's not helping him get dressed, but I mean, this is one of the things that she's done because she's proud of him and she loves him. Is she's putting the crown on his head because it's his wedding day and it's the day of the gladness of his heart. In other words, this is, possibly or probably the happiest day of his life is because he's getting married to the woman that he loves. All right, so now we skip to chapter 4. In verse 12, it says, "A garden enclosed is my sister, my spouse, a spring shut up, a fountain sealed." All right, now it appears the wedding's over, but they're preparing, I guess, for their wedding, not for their honeymoon. And Solomon here is talking about his bride. He says, "A garden enclosed," and he calls her his sister. And then he says, "my spouse." And then he calls her a spring shut up and a fountain sealed. In other words, she has saved herself for marriage. She's like a garden enclosed, a garden that it's got a wall around it. It's the gate's locked, meaning nobody's allowed in except the ones that are allowed in, and that's going to be Solomon, her husband. She's a garden enclosed, a spring shut up. It's covered where, you have to have the key, I guess you could say, to get to the water. A fountain sealed. And so he's basically saying she's a virgin, and her love, their love is exclusive to each other. That they don't go share their love with anybody else. It's only for each other. Then verse 13, it says, Thy plants are an orchard of pomegranates with pleasant fruits, camphor and spikenard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon, with all the trees of frankincense, myrrh, and aloes, with all the chief spices. A fountain of gardens and a well of living waters and streams from Lebanon. All right, so now Solomon's comparing his bride to these, like an orchard full of sweet-smelling fruits and spices, because he's describing her loveliness. Well, I lost my place here. All right. And then the fountains, the fountain, the well, and the streams describe her, I guess, her refreshing nature, that he is refreshed to be around her, because of the life-giving power of water. And he could be referring also to her ability to have children, that many children could come from her. And then verse 16, this appears to be the bride speaking now. She says, Awake, O north wind, and come. Blow south. Blow upon my garden, that the spices thereof may flow out. Let my beloved come into his garden and eat his pleasant fruits. So it seems to be that the bride is speaking, and she's asking the wind to carry the fragrance of her, of these pomegranates. This illustration or figurative speech of how good she smells. She's saying, wind, blow my fragrance and the smell of the spices and the fruits and the things in the garden. He says, blow it so that my beloved can come into his garden, so it will entice him to come into his garden and eat his pleasant fruits. So she's saying, let the smell, entice him to come, because it's our wedding night, and let's consummate the marriage. So now we come, and I believe this is the next verse in verse 1 of chapter 5. He says, I am come into my garden, my sister, my spouse. I have gathered my myrrh with my spice. I have eaten my honeycomb with my honey. I have drunk my wine with my milk. It says, eat, O friends, drink, yea, drink abundantly, O beloved. All right, so he said, I'm coming to my garden, my sister. So obviously this is Solomon speaking to his spouse, to his bride. He says, I've come into my garden, my sister, my spouse, and I've drunk my wine with my milk. He's basically saying, yes, the smell of her fragrance has done its job, done what she wanted, and he's ready to consummate the marriage, or he is consummating the marriage. And then there's this line here. It says, eat, O friends, drink, yea, and drink abundantly, O beloved. And commentators believe this is perhaps the voice of God placing his blessing on the union, because God created the institution of marriage. And as long as you are within that, the bounds of marriage, he approves of sex because he invented sex. Hebrews 13, verse 4, it says, marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled, but whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. 1 Corinthians 7, verses 3 and 4 says, let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. The wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband, and likewise also the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife. And so, God approves, of sex within marriage as long as it stays within marriage, and so they are apparently consummating the marriage in this verse. All right, so verse 2. Now, this is one of those occasions where the scene just suddenly, without warning, changes. And apparently this is the sometime later, and the bride, the wife, she says, I sleep, but my heart waketh. It is the voice of my beloved that knocketh, saying, open to me, my sister, my love, my dove, my undefiled, for my head is filled with dew and locks with the drops of the night. All right, so apparently she's asleep. And when you're asleep and you suddenly become wakened, you kind of halfway know what's going on, but halfway you don't. You're still half asleep. And this appears to be what's happening. Is she says, I sleep, but my heart waketh. She's kind of half awake. And she becomes aware of the voice of her beloved. Solomon has come home. And apparently she's went to bed early, or maybe not even early, her husband, and we don't know why he was gone. Maybe he was going to work. He was gone on a trip. She doesn't know when he's going to get home, so she goes on to bed. But now he has come home, and he's brought a surprise, as we'll see here in a minute. He's brought a surprise for her. And so he's knocking at the door saying, open to me, my sister, my love, my dove, my undefiled. He says, my head is filled with dew and my locks with the drops of the night. Apparently it's late enough at night that dew has fallen, and he has been out there in it, so he's wet with dew. And so she says, I have put off my coat. This is verse 3. I have put off my coat. How shall I put it on? I have washed my feet. How shall I defile them? She appears to still not be completely awake, understanding. She's only half comprehending, I guess, who's at the door. And so her first thought is, I've put off my coat, and how else shall I put it on? She's gotten undressed for bed. And I have washed my feet. How shall I defile them? She's washed her feet, and so she knows to get out of the bed, it's going to dirty my feet. She says, I don't want to go in an undressed state to the door, and I don't want to dirty my feet. So verse 4, it says, my beloved put his hand by the hole of the door, and my bowels were moved for him. And I rose up to open to my beloved, and my hands dropped with myrrh, and my fingers with sweet-smelling myrrh upon the handles of the lock. All right, so it says, my beloved put his hand by the hole of the door. That was how they locked their doors. Apparently there would be a hole there, and that was where you would reach in, I guess, with a key or whatever. And so apparently either he didn't have a key or else he chose not to come in. But she said, my beloved put his hand by the hole in the door, and my bowels were moved for him. Her bowels are the seat. In that time, it was considered to be the center, the seat of emotions. So she said, like, my emotions was stirred up for him. And she says, like, I realized who it was. Oh, that's my beloved. I got to get up and open the door for him. So she says, I rose up to open to my beloved, and my hands dropped with myrrh. This is the surprise. He stuck his hand in there and put the myrrh, the perfumes, the sweet-smelling myrrh, as it says, on the door locks, the door handles. And so when she reaches in to unlock it, she gets it on her hands. So she says her fingers, my hands dropped with myrrh, my fingers with the sweet-smelling myrrh upon the handles of the lock. Verse 6, she says, I opened to my beloved. So she wastes no time. She opens the door. I opened to my beloved. But my beloved had withdrawn himself and was gone. Apparently she didn't, because she's still half asleep, she didn't get up in time. So he decided to go somewhere else. So she said, my beloved had withdrawn himself and was gone. My soul failed when she spake, like her heart sank. And she said, I sought him, but I could not find him. I called him, but he gave no answer. So apparently he was done out of earshot. When she called out to him, he couldn't hear. So now we come to chapter 8, the last chapter, verse 6. It says, set me as a seal upon thine heart, as a seal upon thine arm, for love is strong as death, jealousy is cruel as the grave, the coals thereof are coals of fire, which hath a most vehement flame. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can the floods drown it. If a man would give all his substance of his house for love, it would be utterly contemned. All right, so he says, well, she says, set me as a seal upon thine heart, as a seal upon thine arm. A seal indicated ownership. And so Solomon's bride, she's asking that she be the seal on his heart, showing that he belongs to her, she belongs to him. And it's just like a seal or like an armband, or they would have like these forearm pieces that you'd wear, either leather or metal, with a seal on it that says, okay, this is who I belong to, or this is who I'm fighting for, or whatever. She says, let me be a seal on your heart, just like a seal upon your arm. Then she says, for love is strong as death. Death can't be defeated, at least not humanly speaking. So she said, look, love is just as strong as death. And then she says, jealousy is as cruel as the grave. When two people love each other, that makes the jealousy between them to be even stronger. If somebody tries to come in between them and try to, you can tell how strong a woman's love is for her husband if another woman tries to interject herself in between them. So you'll find out how much, because that jealousy, she'll go after that woman. And so it says, jealousy is as cruel as the grave. Jealousy shows no mercy. Then she says, coals thereof are coals of fire, which hath a most vehement flame. She's saying, this is how strong my love is. It's like coals of fire and a very intense flame. And so she says, many waters cannot quench love. My love is so intense that it don't matter how much water you have, it's not going to put my love out, and neither can the floods drown it. It says, and if a man would give all substance of his house for love, it would be utterly condemned. And condemned means to be despised or held in contempt. If a man was to try to buy love with his, everything that he had, he would be ridiculed, because they're like, there's no way you can buy love. Love is priceless. And so any price that you would think you could come up with would just not be enough. All right. I made it through all of it. So we're going to be in Luke chapter 1 next week. So we'll be studying the Gospel of Luke.